Lesson 6. The second way of coming to know God, the outer way. With a quick glance at the world that we live in, we realize that the world is not in chaos and disorder. Rather, all phenomena are in motion, moving towards a clear and determined direction. The facilities of the world are like a great army which has been divided into well-organized units which move in a determined direction. The following points will clarify any ambiguities. In order to come into being and to remain, every living creature must be a part of a series of laws and special conditions. For instance, for a tree to be, water and suitable soil and a specific temperature are necessary for us to plant seeds and nourish them, and each seed to become green and grow. If these conditions do not exist, there is no possibility for growth, and choosing of these conditions and proving the necessary preliminaries requires an intellect and knowledge. Every creature has a special effect which is exclusive to it. Water and fire each have their own particularities which do not separate from them, and they constantly follow permanent laws. All of the members, organs of living creatures work and are coordinated with each other. As an example, this very human body, which is itself a world, all works together consciously and unconsciously in a special coordination. For instance, if a danger arises, all are mobilized for defense. This relationship and cooperation is another sign of order in the universe. One look at the world scene makes it clear that not only all organs of one body, of one living creature is in coordination with each other, but all the various creatures of the world are also in special coordination with each other. For instance, for the nourishment of living creatures, the sun shines, clouds bring rain, and the earth and resources of the earth also help. This all shows the existence of one clear system in the universe. This truth is clear for everyone's conscience, that whenever order exists in a facility, this shows intellect, thought, a plan, and a goal. Because whenever a human being sees order, permanent laws, and a reckoning of things, he or she that beside that source. Because whenever a human being sees order, permanent laws, and a reckoning of things, he or she knows that beside that source. Knowledge and power must also be sought in understanding this. In one's conscience, he or she does not see need for reasoning. He or she knows that a blind person or an illiterate person can never type a good essay or write a social or critical article, that a child of 2 years old can never paint beautiful and valuable painting by the drawing of lines on a piece of paper. Rather, if we see a good essay or read a good article, we know that a person who is literate or if we have seen very beautiful paintings, we will have no doubt that an expert painted them, even if we have never met or seen the painter. Thus, wherever there is a sense of order, beside that, there has been an intellect, and however much larger that system be, it is more accurate and more interesting. The knowledge which brings that into being in the same proportion is greater. Sometimes, in order to prove this issue that every system needs a source of knowledge, the law of probabilities, which has been achieved in high mathematics, is used to prove that. For instance, if an illiterate individual wants to type an article or an essay or a poem by randomly pressuring on the keys of the machine, according to the law of probabilities, this will take millions of years to attain, to which one lifetime is not sufficient. The Holy Quran says, "Soon we will show them our signs upon the horizons and in their own souls, until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. Is it not enough that thy nourisher is aware of all things?" Think and answer. Give a few examples other than those presented in the story about industrial units, the observation of which shows the existence of a creator of the world who is aware. Number 2. What is the difference between horizons and souls? Give example of God in the horizons and within one's own soul. Lesson 7. Examples from creation. Throughout the world, order, goal, and design are apparent. Now pay attention as we study some examples of this. We will present some large and small examples for you. Fortunately today, with the progress made in natural sciences, the discovery of the secrets and wonders of the world of nature, and the subtleties in the existence of human beings, animals, and plants, the wonderful structure of a cell or an atom, and the wonderful system of the stars, the doors of knowing God have been opened to us in such a way that one can clearly say that all books of natural sciences are books about the oneness and unity of God, which teach us great lessons about the great Creator, because these books remove the veils or curtains which cover the interesting order of the creatures of this world and show how important the Creator of this world is. The center of administration of the country of your body. Our skull has been filled with gray matter called the brain. The brain forms the most accurate and exact system of our body because it commands all of the powers of our body and it manages all of the organs of our system. In order to understand the importance of this great center, it would be a good idea for us to explain the following for you. The newspapers had printed that a Shirazi University student in Khuzestan was in an automobile accident and his brain was damaged. But it seemed that nothing at all had happened to him. All of his organs were healthy, but strangely enough, he had forgotten all of his past life. His mind worked well. He could study, but if he saw his mother and father, he did not recognize them. When they said to him that this was his mother, he was surprised. They took him to his home in Shiraz. They showed him the handicraft work he had done and then hung on the walls of his room. But he looked at it in all amazement and said that he was seeing these things for the first time. It became clear that in the brain damage he suffered, cells which were, in reality, transitions between thought and his memory were no longer working, unlike a blown-out fuse which cuts off the electricity and brings darkness. His memory of the past had been disconnected. Perhaps the point which no longer works is no bigger than the size of the top of a pin, but what an effect it has had upon his life, and from this it becomes clear in how complicated and how important our brain is. Our brain consists of two separate parts. First, the part which is controlled by a voluntary, which controls all of our voluntary motions like walking, looking, speaking. Second, the involuntary part which controls the movements of our heart, stomach, etc. And if one part of this part of the brain does not function, the heart or the other organ will not longer function. One of the most wonderful parts of the brain. The cerebrum is the center of willpower, consciousness, and memory. In other words, it is one of the most sensitive areas of the brain, and many of the reactions of the inner senses like anger, fear, etc. relate to it. If we take out the cerebrum in an animal, but we leave the other organs as they are, it will remain alive, but its understanding and consciousness will be totally eliminated. They have removed the brain of a pigeon. It remained alive for a while, but it could not eat seeds that were placed in front of it. Even though it was hungry, it would not eat. If it was allowed to fly, it flew until it hit a barrier and fell down. Another wonderful part of the brain is the sense of memory. Have you ever thought how wonderful our sense of memory is? If our sense of memory is taken from us for even an hour, what a difficult situation will we be placed in? The center of memory, which forms a smaller part of our brain, is where all of our memories of our lifetime are stored. Whoever is related to us, the particularities of that person as to size, form, color, clothes, and spirit are kept in storage in their own area, and a special file is formed for each one. Thus, the moment we confront that person, our mind removes him from the file and immediately, completely reviews that what we know about him, and then it commands us as to what reaction we should have. If it is a friend, respect. And if it is an enemy, the showing of hatred, but all of this is done quickly, that there is more or less no lapse of time. The wonder of this becomes more apparent when we try to recall what is stored and draw it or write it down or record it in a tape recorder. Without any doubt, it will require a great deal of paper or a great number of tapes, which can fill a large storage room. Even more wonderful than this is when we want to find one drawing or one tape among them. A file clerk will be necessary. Can you believe that such an extraordinary system, which is so subtle, accurate, complicated, and mysterious, be made from unconscious nature? Many wonderful than this is to believe that an unintelligent nature could create intelligence. The Holy Quran says, "On the earth are signs for those of assured faith, as also in your own selves. Will you not then see?" Think and answer. Do you have any other information about the wonders of the human brain? Number 2. What has God created in order to protect the human brain against accident? Lesson 8. A world of wonder in a small word. In this lesson, we want to leave aside the large country of our body, which we have only very briefly touched upon, and turn to look at the wonderful order of other creatures. We look at the sky in the darkness of night. We see an exceptional bird which is searching for food with all of his energy. This bird is a bat. There are many wondrous things, but flying at night is among the most wondrous. The swift flight of bats in the darkness of the night without hitting anything is so wondrous that no matter how often one studies this, new mysteries of this are revealed. The bird flies with the same speed and accuracy as a pigeon does in the daytime. If it flies into a dark and narrow tunnel, which is full of smoke and twists and turns, it will fly through all of the twists and turns without hitting any of the walls, and not the smallest amount of smoke will be found on its wings. The strange ability of the bat is proof of an effect within it which is similar to radar. We now need to know what radar is in order to be able to see it in a small bat. In physics, in this discussion on forms, waves are discussed which are beyond sound waves. These waves are those same waves whose length and frequency are so great that the human ear cannot hear them. This is why they are called meta-sound waves. When these waves are set off by means of very strong transmitter, these waves move forward, but whenever they meet up with any kind of a barrier in a point of space, like the aircraft of the enemy, etc., just like a ball when it hits a wall and bounces back, like our voice before a mountain or a high wall, and based on an accurate record of how long it takes for the sound to return to us, we can measure the exact distance of the object. Many aircrafts and ships are guided by means of radar, and it takes them to whatever direction they want. It is also used to find out the location of enemy ships and aircraft. Scholars say that within this small creature there is something similar to a radar, so that if the bat flies in a room which at that same moment a microphone is put to use to transform meta-sound waves into sound waves which can be heard in each sound 30 to 60 times. The meta-sound waves will be heard by the bat. Scholars in answer to this say these waves leave the larynx through the nose of the bat by means of strong organs in its ears, which are the receivers. receive these. Thus, this bat in its night travels is obligated to its ears. A scholar through experiment has proven that if you remove the ears of a bat, it cannot fly, avoiding things, whereas if you completely remove its eyes, it will very expertly still be able to fly. That is, a bat sees with its ears. No, not its eyes. And this is most strange. Now think, who created these two wondrous organs in this small creature, and how was it taught how to use them, and how can it avoid the dangers which exist during its night flying? Who? Is it possible that nature, having the intelligence and consciousness to do this, and place these organs which scientists copy at great expense in its body? Hadrat Ali, peace be upon him, in the Najul Balaga, in a very long sermon about creation, mentions that bat, saying, "It is never prevented from the way because of the darkness of the night. Great and glorious is God who, without a previous model, brought everything into being." Think and answer. What other interesting information do you have about the bat? Number 2. Did you know that the bat's wings and how it bears children, and that even its method of sleeping differs from other animals, and that it is most exceptional? Lesson 9. Love for insects and flowers. One spring day, when the weather is little by little growing warmer, making a visit to a park or a farm, you will meet up with all sorts of small insects, honeybees, flies, butterflies, and mosquitoes, who, without making a sound, fly from one flower to the next, and from the branch to the branch of the trees. They are all so busy. They are so busy with their work that one could imagine an employer is overlooking their progress and continuously telling them what to do. Their wings and feet are colored yellow by the pollen of the flowers, giving them the look of workers who have put on their work clothes, and with love and seriousness they continue their work. In truth, they have a very important assignment, which is so great that Professor Leon Britton says, "Few people realize that without the work of insects, our fruit baskets would be empty." And we add this sentence: "The next year our green gardens and pastures would be completely lost." Those insects are in reality the real nourishers of fruit and providers of flower seeds. You must probably ask why. Because the most sensitive act in the life of flowers is performed with their help. You have probably heard that flowers, like many animals, have two parts, masculine and feminine, and that reproduction takes place through their union, giving us seeds and fruit. But have you ever thought how the two parts of flower which do not move are attracted to each other? And how the male spermatozoa mix with the female ovary and provide the beginning of a marriage between the two? This work is most often the work of insects, and in some cases it is the work of the wind. But this is not as simple as we think it is. This faithful marriage, in which insects as the intermediates, has a history, formality, and long adventure, only a small part of which we mention here with a short story. Two old and close friends, natural scientists, after study, have concluded that flowers and plants appeared in the second geological age, and strangely enough, insects appeared at the same time. These two, throughout the eventful history of creation, were like two old and close friends who have remained loyal to each other and have been complements to one another. Flowers have always stored sweet nectar within themselves in order to further attract and sweeten the relationship. At the time when insects enter the flower in order to transfer the masculine group, provide the preliminaries for the marriage and pregnancy, the flower freely gives of its sweetness to them. The sweet and valuable sugar is so good tasting to the insect that they are naturally pulled towards it. Botanists believe that the beautiful colors and good-smelling perfume of flower also play an important role in attracting the insects to them. Various experiments with honeybees have shown that they distinguish colors and the aroma of flowers. In reality, it is these flowers which grow for insects and have a good-smelling aroma in such a way that a butterfly and honeybees are attracted to them. They accept the invitation with all of their being and quickly begin their preliminaries and eat of their sweetness. This very sweetness is a special kind of sugar which is considered to be the best food for insects, which it is stored in one place. It makes honey because insects are attracted to flowers. It eats some of its sweetness and takes most of it with them or their honeycomb to store. This is a contract of friendship and love which is based on mutual interest. Always existed will continue to exist between flowers and insects. A lesson about monotheism. When a human being studies these wondrous points in the lives of insects and flowers, he or she automatically asks, who established this pact of love and friendship between insects and flowers? Who gave this special sweetness and good-tasting nectar to flowers? Who granted flowers these attractive colors, beauty, and the sweet-smelling perfume? Who invited insects towards it? What were the fat and tiny bodies of insects, butterflies, honeybees, and golden bees given to make them prepared to collect the pollen of flowers? Why do bees for a certain period of time move toward one kind of flower? Why the life of flowers and insects begin at one time in the created world? Can anyone, no matter how stubborn, accept the fact that all of these events were without any plan or pre-design, and the unconscious laws of nature automatically brought such wondrous scenes into being? Never. And thy nourisher taught the bee to build its cells in hills, on trees and in habitations, then to eat of all the produce of the earth, and find with skill in spacious paths of its nourisher. Think and answer. What use does the sweetness, color, and perfume of flower have? Number 2. What do you know about the amazing life of honeybees? Lesson 10. In the world of infinitely small things. Because we are nurtured in the wondrous world of creation and we are familiar with it, we may be unaware of the importance of many of its wonders, such as: Number 1. Insects or very tiny animals live around us, which if measured would not even be 2 millimeters, but just like large animals. They have hands, feet, eyes, ears, even brains, awareness, a certain series of nerves and digestive facilities. If we put the brain of an ant under a microscope and if we study its amazing structure with care, we would see with a strange and interesting body it has. The various parts are placed next to each other. Each gives a command to a certain part of the tiny ant's body, and the slightest change in any of these areas would paralyze a part of its body. The strange part is that in this small brain, which is much smaller than the head of a pin, lies in a world of awareness, wisdom, civilization, taste, and art. It is such that a group of scholars spend many long years of their lives studying these animals. They include the interesting points in the books that they write for us. Can the person who created all of this awareness, wisdom, taste in such a small animal be a nature that does not itself have even a pinhead's amount of awareness and wisdom? Number 2. In the mysterious world, we know that the smallest creature recognized to date is the atom. The atom is also so small that even the strongest microscope, which shows a piece of straw like a mountain, is not strong enough to see one. If you want to know how small an atom is, know that one drop of water has many more atoms than the number of people upon the earth. And if we want to count the protons in 1 centimeter of a thin wire, and we get 1,000 people to help us, and if in each second we separate out one of them, it will take 30 to 300 years, depending on the number of atoms, of working day and night to count all of them. Now that you have understood that 1 centimeter of a thin wire contains so many atoms, just think about how many atoms are there in the heavens and on the earth, in water and the air and the stars and planets and galaxy. Does one's mind not tire just thinking about it? No one other than their creator is worthy to count them. Atoms give us a lesson in monotheism. Learning about atoms, which are among the most important scientific discussions today, this tiny thing gives us a glad and happy lesson in monotheism, because the world of atoms call our attention to them in 4 areas. Number 1, the extraordinary sense of order. To date, more than 100 elements have been discovered, beginning gradually with 1 electron and accepting up to over 100. This amazing order could never be born from an unaware or unintelligent factor. Number 2, strong sense of balance. We know that 2 different electrons attract each other. Thus, electrons which are negative and a nucleus which is positive should attract each other. In addition, we also know that the encirclement of electrons around a nucleus brings a repulsive force into being, flight from the center. Thus, the pull of this force draws electrons away from the atomic environment. The atom is separated, and its attractive forces want to attract the electrons and destroy the atom. It is here that one must see how accurately the force of attraction and repulsion have been systematically arranged in atoms, so that neither do the electrons flee, nor are they attracted, but are always in a state of balance, continuing their movement. Is it possible that a blind and deaf nature bring this balance into being? Number 3, each upon its own way. We have said that some atoms have a multiple number of electrons, but not that all of the atoms move in one circuit, but rather in multiple circuits, and each electron in a determined distance, each within its own area, with great speed move like this for millions of years, without any contradiction arising between them. It is a simple issue to place all of these in a fixed circuit in movement with an unbelievable system of order. Number 4, the great energy of the atom. In order to understand the great strength of the atom, just consider that in 1945, an experimental atom bomb was set off in the wilderness. A very small atomic bomb was placed upon a metal stand. After the explosion, the metal melted, and then set off steam and electricity, and a frightful sound was heard. When scientists went to look for it, there was no sign of it. In this same year, 2 small bombs like these were inhumanely exploded over Japan by the USA, one in the city of Nagasaki and the other in the city of Hiroshima. In the first city, 70,000 people were killed instantaneously, and the same number were injured. 30 to 40,000 people were killed instantaneously, and the same number were injured, making Japan unconditionally surrender the war with America. Is it not sufficient to simply study the small atom for the human being to come to know the greatness of the creator of the universe? It can then be said that there are as many reasons for the existence of God as there are atoms in the universe. Quran. And if all the trees on earth were pens and oceans were ink, with 7 oceans behind it to add its supply, yet would not the words of God be exhausted. Think and answer. Do you know other things about the life of ants? Can you draw the structure of an atom on the blackboard? Appendix to Lesson 10. How splendid are God's qualities. His qualities. Know that to the same extent that realizing the existence of God through studying the secrets of the created world is easy, learning of His qualities is difficult and requires a great deal of care and caution. You probably wonder why. The reason for this is clear, because God does not resemble anything we have even seen or heard. Thus, the first condition is to recognize God's qualities, is to negate all for the qualities of creatures. That is, not comparing him to any limited creature of the world of nature. That our task becomes difficult because we have grown up in the heart of this nature. Our contact has been with nature. We have become familiar with it. Thus, we are inclined to compare everything with it. In other words, whatever we have seen has had a material form. Some of the creatures which have a determined time and place have a special dimension and form. Because of this, conceiving of a God who neither has eyes nor time or place, but at the same time he overlooks all times and all places and is unlimited from all points of view, is a difficult task. That is, it requires that step be taken along this way with great care. But it is necessary to remind ourselves here of this point, that we can never come to know God's essence, and we should not expect that we could, because such an expectation is like expecting to contain the endless seas in a glass, or expect that a child, which is developing in his mother's womb, know about all of the world outside the womb. Is this possible? It is here that such a small blunder will cause a person to fall tens of kilometers from the main way of coming to know God and become waylaid in crags of idol worship and the worship of creatures. Note with care that in summary we must be conscious of never comparing God's qualities with the qualities of creatures. The qualities of majesty and beauty. We most often divide God's qualities into two groups: those qualities which God has and those qualities which God is free from. And now, this question arises as to how many qualities God's essence has. The answer is, on one hand, God's qualities are endless and unlimited, and on the other hand, they can be summarized in one quality, because all of the qualities of God can be summarized in the following. The essence of God is an essence in which is infinite from all points of view, and it contains all perfections. From the point of view of qualities which God does not contain, they can be summarized in the following sentence: the essence of God is not imperfect from any point of view. But from another angle, as perfections and imperfections have various levels, this is, we can conceive of endless perfections and endless imperfections. Thus, it can be said that God is the infinite of demonstrated qualities and infinite negation of qualities, because whatever perfection you can imagine, He has, and whatever imperfection you can imagine, He is free of. Thus, the demonstrated and negation of qualities of God are unlimited. The most well-known qualities of God. The most famous demonstrated qualities of God can be summarized in the following. Number 1. God is the knower, alim. He knows all things. Number 2. God is powerful, qadir. He has ability over all things. Number 3. God is the living, because something which is living has wisdom, power, and because God is wise and powerful, thus He is living. Number 4. God is the willer, murid. That is, He has a will power, and He is not obliged in His work and whatever He does. He has a goal and wisdom, and even the smallest thing in the universe does not lack a philosophy and a goal. Number 5. God is perceiving, mudrik. That is, He understands and perceives all things. He sees everything, He hears all things, and He is aware of all things. Number 6. God is primordial and eternal, qadim and azali. That is, He always was, and His existence has no beginning, because He always boils from His inner essence. Because of this, He's primordial and eternal, because a person whose being is from He Himself has no non-existence. Number 7. God is a speaker, mutakallim. That is, He can create waves in the atmosphere and speak to his prophet. Not that God has a tongue or lips. Number 8. God is truthful, Sadiq. That is, whatever he sees is the truth and is equivalent to reality, because lying comes from ignorance or from weakness and a lack of power. It is impossible for a God who is knowing and powerful to lie. The most well-known negation of qualities of God. Number 1, he is not a composite, that is, he does not have mixed elements, because in this case he would be in need of other elements, whereas he is in need of nothing. Number 2, God is not a body, because everybody is limited, unstable, and accepts annihilation. Number 3, God is not visible, that is, he cannot be seen, because if he could be seen, he would be a body, limited and accepting annihilation. Number 4, God has no place, because he is not a body to require a place. Number 5, God has no partner, because if he had a partner, he would have to be a limited creature, because two non-limited from every point of view is not possible, and in addition, the unity of law of this world shows his oneness. Number 6, his qualities are exactly like his essence. Number 7, God is needless and self-sufficient. He is rich and containing everything, because an endless being from the point of view knowledge, power, and all things has no deficiencies. The Holy Quran says, "There is nothing like unto him." Think and answer. Do you know another reason for the oneness of God and his not having a partner? Number 2, have you heard the same religions believe that God is 3 and some believe that he is 2? Which religions are these?